special guest is also my superstar co-host, Mr. Sam Allen in the
Happy to be here.
Man,
Happy to
what's
be here.
good? Welcome to
Happy
the
to be
show
here.
as a guest.
Happy New Year, man. Oh, good. Yeah, that was neither of us are the most technical when it comes to computer logistics, so we
We are
really had to
both so
troubleshoot our way through.
we are both so flustered right now. That
Yeah.
was 45 minutes exactly of
Mm-hmm.
absolute struggle bus and testing.
Mm-hmm.
Sam couldn't hear me. I could hear him clearly. Couldn't figure out what was going on. Almost
It's
to
like
my computer.
FaceTime audio, Zoom audio, like which one's working?
All the tech.
Yeah.
But hey, look, we starting off the year right.
We here.
Because we didn't let it stop us. We kept going until we got here, and we're here, and the world needed this episode, man. How did
That's
you
it.
celebrate New Year's?
I kept it low key. I was with the family, and then I just stopped by for the countdown for some of our boys. I saw CT and Al and Russ and all them.
Bunch of Bay Area legends who might eventually be on the show.
Yeah, happy to have them.
Man,
yeah, how about yourself?
I feel like it's our duty, our responsibility to kind of start to tell our backstories a little bit. We're going to bring so many people on the show. We're going to dig into their roots so deep. And so I feel like we need to at least give some context on who we are. So today you're up. The special guest is the co-host of this podcast, Sam Allen, born and raised in San Francisco, Cali. And let's hop right into it, man.
Yeah.
When did your basketball journey begin?
I think I was in like league at like 5. There was like a real early league that my parents got us in. My brother was in it first. And so, growing up with a big brother, we just always competed at everything. And that just happened to be our choice. Our choice of competition was basketball. So we've been going hard since, for sure.
Was there ever any other sport involved as a youth, or was it straight to hoop?
I think we both grew up in the generation where kids weren't being diagnosed with ADHD at that point. And so like nothing else just held my attention. Like I played baseball and I was just like rolling around in the grass, and basketball was the only thing that just let me just run forever. Yeah. And so it was the most stimulating for me, and caught on pretty fast. I mean, when you're dealing with a big brother that's just 2.5 years older than you, and then physically better than you at everything at that point, it's just like that desire starts to burn. The fire starts to go pretty early.
So we've touched on this several times on the show, and I'm a younger brother, you're a younger brother. And I swear by the advantages of being a younger brother in life, in school, and especially in sports. Do you feel that you had an advantage by growing up and watching Matt try out for basketball teams first, competing against him when he's bigger, stronger, faster, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't know what the type of advantage is that you're getting, but there's always, it's like the iron sharpens iron thing, and they're always going to be better than you at that point. Like 2.5 years, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, there's going to be a 25% difference in size and weight and strength. And if you're always going against
at least 15, 16 years.
Yeah. And if you're always going against someone that's, better than you, then you're going to have to get better. So we've been going at it at everything since we were little ones.
I thought about this for a minute as a quick tidbit to younger players that are playing, especially if you have an older brother or an older sibling, makes it pretty easy. But if you don't, my number one recommendation to you as a youth would be to always play against bigger, stronger, older kids. Always, all the time. Don't play against anyone from your age group until you're 15, 16. Seriously, there's maybe no better advantage or just natural way to train and improve and force you to play above your own peer group and skill set that I could think of. So that's something right there, a little nugget.
I would say the same thing comes to like playing JV or varsity. And then I would, you would go, I would recommend them just play varsity, even though you're not getting like the game reps. You could get hella burn in JV, but every day you're going against someone better than you. And you're making that person better, and byproduct they're making you that much better.
100. Even older, I was thinking I did that unconsciously for so long because my brother's 2 years older than me. At 18 he left, I was 16, and then he I didn't have that natural in-house competition. But if I could do something differently at that age, I would have been jumping in college runs as often as I could. I would have got in at St. Mary's, Cal. I would have played against college kids in the recs. I would have all my free time if I could, instead of beating up on freshmen and sophomores in my high school, I would have tried to go after JUCO. You know, at this point, I was getting a little bit recruited. Any JUCO that was interested, I'd be, hey, let me come work out with your guys. Let me
Yeah.
come with them. Everything. I should have kept that going into adulthood. Always be training against people bigger, stronger, faster than me.
Because that
But
confidence will come with both of them, right? Anytime you go back to high school and you are a better player, like that
right,
confidence will be instilled. But you know, hanging with college guys, hanging with pros and semi-pros, iron sharpens iron, man.
100%. So your brother and you are really different in a lot of ways. I know you both very well. I've been close to both of you for a long time. And especially in your style of play, I feel like you have two very different styles of play. You're both talented basketball players. And I'm curious, how did that come about? Did your father teach y'all fundamentals? Did y'all just kind of learn on your own? Or how did it come about that these two kids close in age from the same household have relatively different styles of play?
Yeah, I mean, as much as my dad knew, like he wasn't much of a hooper, but he could play, and then we both played in that same league growing up, where fundamentals was something that was emphasized along with having fun. Um, but we both played at pretty good high school programs. Um, but yeah, I think Matt was just more talented. Like he was, he's got a right and a left. Like he grew up lefty, could shoot righty. And so things just came easy for him, and for me, like I just had to work harder, and they just made me better. um Carl really sat me down like the end of my freshman year. Coach Carl was my high school coach.
Shout out Carl Jacobs, legendary coach.
He sat me down at the end of my freshman year and was just like, you just got to get in the weight room. Like, who are you watching right now? And I think it's like Steve Francis was like a big guard. Jay Kidd was a big guard. And like, I was 120 pounds. And he's like, you just beat up, you just finished your freshman year. You're beat up at this point. You just got to get in the weight room. So I was able to add a little bit more physicality than he was. But my brother was always, he was more athletic. He was more skilled. I was just able to find a different lane for me,
Yeah.
which was cool.
How did you meet Coach Carl? Well, I was going to get into that later when we talk about Pro-Am,
Yeah.
but legendary coach and just also one of the most considerate, humble, and thoughtful people I've ever met. How did I met him through you. How did your relationship form?
He was the high school coach at Lincoln, where I was going to high school. I was a freshman, and I remember actually, he's a security guard there too at that moment. Now he's the AD, but he was a security guard and he was coaching basketball, and like it was just free play around during PE time, and he kept telling me to pick up my shorts, like cause, it was like 01, 02, so it was big
Baggy was still
CMB,
in.
big CMB, yeah,
Not coming back in
baggy
like
everything.
it's trying to now, but it was in.
Yeah. And then he called me over, was like, what you doing, man? I was like, oh, I'm just messing around. He's like, put your shorts up. I was like, all right. And then, you don't think I was looking, and now you're just tugging at him. And he's like, call me over again. I'm not going to ask you again, man. Like, and then from there, it was like that instilled, yeah, that like instilled the respect and the fear at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was pretty good as a freshman. I played JV my freshman year, and then afterwards was able to play my sophomore through senior year of varsity.
Was there a moment when you noticed you were getting better than most of the kids in your peer group and in your age range?
I mean, I was pretty good as like a little kid, just because I was like, I was just played. I just played harder than everyone. As like a fourth grader, yeah, as a fourth grader. So my brother, we went to the same middle school, and I always knew my brother's better than me at basketball. But he graduated, he went into sixth grade, and then like our youth security counselor for the middle school was like hosting like a little like one-on-one, like it was basically king of the court. Yeah. And as a fourth grader, I had won it, and so like I'm beating fifth graders, so now I'm pretty good.
A little bit now, yeah.
Now I'm pretty good. And then I mean, I was getting like boxed and won as like a fifth grader and stuff in like other leagues. So, I mean, I just thought I played harder. I don't think I was more skilled than anybody at that point. But with that, like you think you're better, and so you play better. Just like that false sense of confidence makes you a better player in itself.
Right. And you had the experience of playing at two high schools. Can you talk about what made you make the decision to transfer from Lincoln to International?
Mhm.
and how that came about?
So Carl, after my sophomore year, Carl took the job over at International. He left Lincoln, and there was an opportunity for me to play there. And both my parents thought it was a good idea. Like I was in a public school, and not that I was doing anything wrong. It's just I don't think I was doing a lot of things right outside of basketball.
Yeah.
And so to have like a singular focus where I was able to, lock in a little bit more academically, and then have the support system to, Carl was there to really instill and build a program kind of from the ground up. I ended up at International where, they were perennial sub 500, had never amounted to much athletically, but academically a very rigorous school. And we ended up doing really, really well there. Carl brought myself and another one of my teammates, Josh Merritt. He was a freshman over at Lincoln, a grade younger than me, and we ended up winning like 29, 20, 30 games, back-to-back seasons, one league in both years. And so just to have a new focus outside of basketball. I've never been more academically inclined. I always figured I could play basketball if I went to school. And so with that, having an infrastructure centered around academics first and then basketball was able to, push me forward to play more basketball, to
Mm,
be able to like have a foundation of academics first and then basketball allowed me to, go to college and play basketball, because if I was just playing basketball, maybe I wouldn't have gone to college.
absolutely. That's a great
Yeah.
point. It's funny because there's different approaches to this, right? There's the LeVar Ball approach to basketball where you use it to govern all these other things, at least he did for his kids, and maybe he
Mhm.
recognized that they had superior talent. I came up in an era where basketball was strictly a mechanism to help you attend maybe a better university or a way to keep you out of trouble, but academics was the only thing that mattered, right? And basketball
Mhm.
was this afterthought until I started to show some prowess. And I'm wondering what you would advise kids, or do you often get the question now as a coach as to how to approach being a student athlete? I think this line's getting blurred now, and a lot of
Yeah.
kids are thinking of themselves as pros, or at least, on that track very early and very young. How do you say for your kids reinforce the importance of academics, even if they have the talent to go on and do great things in basketball?
I think that's a great question, by the way. I think a lot of it is just distractions, right? Like they grow up in. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to have a social media as a high school and actually be pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And have like literally thousands of people that like are paying attention to you because you are good at basketball. And so to be able to hone that focus and limit your distractions, um, I think would be the biggest thing. And then we talked about it before, just like loving the grind as much as you love to grind on a basketball court, or you love whatever accolades and shine comes with that, to be able to have that same focus and apply it towards academics. um I mean, my brother's a high school teacher and coach, and so he probably can shed a little bit more light on that, because it's so easy to say, but it's so hard to do. Like, how can I love a class just as much as I love playing basketball?
Right.
um and we can offer as much advice as we can, but like I've never been academically inclined. I always saw it as a means to play basketball. But no, having some life experience, it's equally, it's not even equally important. Like the academic side is far more important, because without one you cannot have the other.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to ask you this question. I grew up on the East Bay. It's just, 15 minutes across one bridge separating, let's say, Oakland from San Francisco. Can you describe growing up being a basketball player in San Francisco, just what that's like? And why I'm asking is because for me, I walk to a park, I go hoop, right? There were rec centers, etc. The city, I feel like, is a different beast. You might have to hop on two buses and a train to get to your practices, your games, your school, your workout. I feel like you had a completely different uh, pool around you, right? Of
Yeah.
how basketball relates in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And how were you able to find a coach, a trainer? Did you go to a rec center, or did you play in parks? Just describe how kids in the city grow up playing basketball and how they get better.
So San Francisco is like geographically there are physical barriers like preventing people to go from one side of the city to the other because there's so many hills, there's so much public transportation. But they do a really good job of like providing park and rec space.
Mhm.
So I grew up in the Sunset. Down the street was Sunset Rec, which had, there was always run. It may have been trash run, but there was always somebody to play with.
Okay.
Um, and so there are rec centers, Palega, Potrero Hill, and again, there's always going to be run, Glen Park. And so it didn't get until high school when like Carl was just bringing his OGs in to come train me, and very similar to like how I grew up is how I see myself passing on the torch. With my young boys, just either hit me up and we get keys to the gym, or they pick me up and we meet at a rec center and they take me to the big homies run or whatever it is. I remember Jacob Hill, Orion Russell, both are two guys that spent a lot of time with me in the gym. And it's all, like I said, just passing it forward. As much knowledge, as much basketball as they've been able to kick, and just the mentorship and the brotherhood that we've created. Um, you know, Carl was able to open up the gyms for us, but at the same time, like off season, Jake would come and pick me up and take me to Potrero Hill. We go up to Sac and find a run wherever we could. But yeah, there is like geographical barriers, and everyone has their home gym, and so ours just happened to be Kezar, which we've become very familiar with.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
So let's hop right into that then. How did your relationship come about with the Bay Area Pro-Am, the San Francisco Pro-Am?
So the team that we played on was my high school coach, Carl Jacobs, and so it was an easy transition. I think I was playing on that team as like a 16-year-old, and just throwing a jersey on and sitting at the end of the bench and watching the guys come and play and then playing all the way through college, and then getting to play with you, and then being the starting point guard, and just I might have been playing for like 10 years, 11 years on that team, and to go through the whole revolutions of you know being a bench player, never seeing it and just trying to like slap the backboard as hard as you can in warmups, to like, playing some meaningful minutes against, pros and semi-pros and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Who
what a
who
wonderful
were some
experience.
of the better players in San Francisco at that time, or were there some local guys that you patterned your game after?
I mean, I was always a Iverson guy myself, just watching an undersized, not a Bay Area guy, but like that was 04, 03. So he's just, a energizer buddy. He doesn't stop. He's probably literally my size. He's a he's just a dog on defense. He's a dog on offense, and just to see him play with such passion has always been someone that I've loved to see and I love to watch. Um, in terms of the pro, I'm like before I was even playing in it, like it was down the street from the house I grew up in. So I remember like Gary Payton throwing lobs off to J Kidd off the glass and Brian Shaw. So just old basketball traditions that, you grew up watching these things. And then, I had kids like my high school kids were coming up to me like, yo, you must have went for 30. Like, I was like, there's no way I went for 30.
Gas me
But
up.
like, there's no way I went for 30, but thank you. So like, the way I was watching, J Kidd and Gary Payton, like these young boys are watching me like, oh, this is a kid that looks like me, a kid that grew up with me, and he's playing on the same court where I was idolizing my people. So it's so cool to pay it forward, and see the development of that.
Yeah, and you also, because of the Pro-Am, had the opportunity to play with arguably the greatest player ever, definitely the greatest shooter ever, Stephen Curry.
Yeah,
What was it like to be Steph's teammate, bro?
that was full circle. So he was actually doing the St. Joe's camp. He was doing his Under Armour St. Joe's camp, and then Jacob Hill, the assistant coach, was I think he was over at the camp helping out, and he just invited him over. And he been said he was gonna try and come out here, but that was peak me. So he came and took my starting job. It's cool. I think it was right before his. It must have been 12. I think 2012.
Okay.
So it was right before he really blew up, but he was still the boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you hear the stories about it. I can't say enough good words about that man. So easy to dap somebody up and blow him off, but like to really engage in a conversation when he doesn't even have to. I knew he had come from the camp, and having been around a lot of people, I was like, man, how's your camp going? And he could have easily said like, oh, it was great, man. Like, I love being out there. But he was like, dove right in. He's like, man, those kids that's the next generation. They're coming for me. I'm worried about my job. Like, you need to come check them out. Like, and to be able to like send an invite, engage in that conversation. Incredibly humble. Kezar was packed out. He started the game off like 0 for 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Tired, bro. He's been at camp all day. He probably worked out twice
over
already.
10, and then
Popped over to the city. Yeah.
he just got crazy loose. There's still footage of him on YouTube or something, just crazy loose. And you know, nothing can face him. Unlimited confidence, unlimited range, and truly an honor to share a court with him.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of camps, I think a big part of your life, I know your brothers and also mine by default, was La Garza camp, one of the biggest camps in the city. And I guess an individual who I feel like touched a lot of kids and helped a lot of kids improve their situation through basketball, definitely their mental scope. Can you talk about Coach La Garza and working the La Garza camps in San Francisco?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, some of my best friendships are from those times. And, you know, I'd spent some time with Colin and Al and, you know, Preston and all these guys that we grew up working together with, and it didn't even feel like work. But the craziest thing is like how true those lessons are ringing even today in my life. What he was preaching then. And you may not have realized it then, but like there's still like many phrases that still come up. Like Kaizen was something that we taught, and it was like the Japanese word for like constant improvement, and you can apply it not just in basketball, but to every day in life. Lagarza was San Mateo, the coach of San Mateo for a while. Very, you know, very successful, winning coach, but at the same time, he moved into this business of basketball camps and was able to remain true to himself, and his overall message in terms of the development of youth and development of young men. Like we've learned just as much as the campers did, dealing with one another, you know, punctuality and all that stuff of putting our best foot forward, has you know paid off in dividends throughout our lives. And so yeah,
Yeah,
amazing experience. I think I gave you your first job.
I believe that is true. I believe that is true.
Yeah, thank you.
And man, talk about, I just want to double tap one, you know, every lesson that we were told to teach to the kids landed on me, probably with more effect because I was able to have more experience and kind of understand like how to apply this than even the kids were.
Yeah,
But wow, what an impact, you know, that experience had on me, and some of the mantras and just the approaches and the way to, I guess, mentally overcome difficult situations. They come directly from that experience working for Coach Lagarza. So, you know, if he ever watches this, big thank you to you for helping so many of us out. Um, so let's jump back into your story for a bit and
sure.
talk about a little bit, you know, your senior year at international, season coming to an end, and what happened next, how you made the decision to in whatever school you chose next.
Yeah. So I mean, season was going pretty well. We were better than the league itself. And I actually have a question for you. Like if you were recruiting a player, so there were games where like we would be up 20, I wouldn't even come in the second half. And, you know, it drops your average. Like I probably could have hit like 45 if I kept playing against, you know, this team.
Yeah.
And I didn't think of anything of it now. Like I love like that my teammates got to play so much, and we ended up meeting them in some big games where they got a lot of playing time. But as a coach now, if you can like raise the notoriety of one of your players and have them drop the 30 ball or have them drop the 40 ball, to get them recruited even more, to get more looks at it. Like where do you see, it's not term like running up the score, but allowing, you know, the hard work that an athlete put in to be better than the rest of the guys on the court to really like feel that. How do you feel about that?
It's a great question. I have mixed feelings about that. For one, I will say in hindsight, after going through my entire basketball journey and looking at how it evolved, it was definitely more political, your success as a hooper, than it was based on just It was more political than I ever could have imagined as a young kid. I was raised in that you work hard, you do whatever coach says, you give 110% every night, you outwork everyone, and then you get shine for that. You get
Mm-hmm.
respect for that, and you get notoriety for that. And then I watched these guys, the Ball brothers, right? like from overseas, and all I hear about is LaMelo had 100. Now,
Right.
even from overseas and not being in the States and not understanding what's been going on here for like 6, 7, 8, 9 years at that time, when I heard that, I heard to myself, that was planned out, right? There's
Yeah.
no way, like in a 32-minute game, my kid has 61. He's sitting, why am I keeping him in?
Yeah.
Right now I'm maybe ruining my reputation as a coach by
Mm-hmm.
leaving him in until he gets to 100. But at the same time, I'm in Eastern Europe or wherever I was playing at the time, hearing about a high school kid dropping 100. So,
Right.
mission accomplished. His name's getting out there, right? Whether that's a real 100 or not. But my answer would be, I think any college coach in America would understand that when he sees a kid get 100, they're not playing against another national, number
Yeah.
one team with top
Yeah.
tier recruit. I still to this day, I never watched the highlights. I don't know who he played against that game, but I would bet my house that it wasn't the number 2 team in the nation. That's just my. I put all my money. I've done zero research. Somebody fact check in the comments, but I bet
Yeah.
it wasn't the number 2 team in the nation, right? I bet
Right.
it was blowout.
Yeah.
So sorry. My answers are mixed. I think it's
Yeah.
inappropriate for a kid to be averaging 70, and if he's that good, he shouldn't be in. In terms of the recruiting standpoint, I'll tell you something. Brian Shaw told me when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go to school. He told me, if you have the talent, the league, the coaches, the scouts, they will find you.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experience, the best way to get your name out before they've found you is AAU. And so, I watched Ray Young go to Nike America camp, ABCD camp, whatever national camps he went to. He's in Slam Magazine, legend out of Oakland, McDonald's All-American. And I think his senior year, he only averaged around 20 points a game, which is kind of rare for McDonald's All-Americans. He only averaged 20 points a game, but he had made his name, Peach Jam, AAU tournaments, camps, off-season. It was unquestionable that he was that guy. But also on that team at St. Joe's, he had Justin Davis, who played at Stanford, Nate Marase, who played at Sac State, Renee Jacques, who played at Sac State, another big footer who played at USF, right? So it's like, he's not supposed to average 52. He's got killers with him as well. So everyone knows he's a legend and top tier talent, but they're not looking at the 20. So I think, they can find you if you have the talent. If you need them to find you faster, get on the travel circuit. But in terms of your actual stats from your high school, I think I came into college with a lower scoring average than the other 2 kids that got scholarships to UCSB. But I was the only one with the state championship and the only one with player of the year honors. And I'm the only one of those 3 that graduated. So I think the stats are a lie.
Shout out.
And I think the stats are a lie. And I think also graduated from UCSB, I should say. I think the stats are a lie. And I think scouts are good enough to understand that. So, if he had made the name, it wasn't going to be like, he only averaged 22 though. Why didn't he average 30? I don't think that would be a deal breaker, my experience.
Gotcha.
Super
so
long
I ended up
answer.
I appreciate it. So I ended up having a pretty good senior year. I was first team all San Francisco in some newspaper. I was averaging, and like the thing we just talked about, my average is right around like 17 or 18, but in like close games, it goes up to like 25, 26. So like when we needed to play, I could get it in. And then I ended up going to LMU, and I wanted to walk on there. Things didn't happen.
But how'd you choose LMU? Loyola Marymount is in Los Angeles, California, not too far away from Santa Monica, West LA, let's say, right?
Yeah,
West LA. How'd you choose LMU as a team you wanted to walk on to?
It was just the right size of a school, and on my first visit, it was just a gorgeous campus, and it's Los Angeles. It's the middle of summer. Everything was beautiful, and I felt like it was the right size. It was the right league. I know if I grinded hard enough, I could have gotten in there, but I didn't. There was no like handshake, wink, wink agreement or anything like that. It was just purely me being confident enough to get to that point and play there. But it didn't happen. And go ahead. You had a question.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but I think that's a
Nah,
big point for high school kids that are planning to walk on to a university. At the very least, you want to get that conversation with the coach
absolutely.
and just
Yeah.
and kind of get, hey, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket of coming to your university. I don't have a scholarship agreed on. I just want to at least know I have a legit shot at a tryout, or there's going to be open spaces. Take the initiative in that situation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was great, and absolutely, there was something I didn't do. I felt like having come from a successful program and being a good player, but yeah, it was just a different animal, and so I ended up, transferring to UC Santa Cruz, where I was able to play, and forever grateful. Actually, one of my coaches was your coaches. So my college coach was Gordy Johnson, who was over at St. Joe's for a minute, and amazing guy, giving me the opportunity. When you're transferring in, when they're trying to build a program, they don't want to take sophomores and juniors. They want to be able to develop their home talent, the guys that they're recruiting. And my assistant coach, James Page, who was a UC Santa Cruz alumni, he just kind of recognized the dog in me and allowed me to be there and play there and have a successful junior and senior year. Junior year, I was coming off the bench, and then senior year, I split a lot of time, but I ended up having a fun, amazing basketball career,
Yeah.
and so blessed for
Big
that.
shout out to Gordy Johnson, coached, was the assistant coach at St. Joe's when Jason Kidd played there. Who obviously, Jason Kidd. Calvin Bird was a McDonald's All-American under Coach Johnson. Adrian Ely was a McDonald's or Parade All-American, all the way up to Ray Young, who was McDonald's All-American. Coach Johnson is outstanding, and also a big part of my development, playing for him for a few years over at St. Joe's. How did you choose Santa Cruz? Now, coming out of LMU, you're okay. Hey, look, this isn't going to happen here. I've got all
Right.
the schools that I could choose from. How did
Mhm.
you make the decision to pick UC Santa Cruz?
So there was more. I mean, now that I knew I wanted and needed to play basketball throughout college, that was when I touched all my bases and went back to schools that recruited me coming out of high school. And so,
Had
whether
they
the
had they
email,
been recruiting you while you were in high school?
yeah. So, the coaches reach out, and I was trying to tell them, once I'm trying to tell them I'm trying to go to this place, and they don't really, as a D3 school, they don't really have a lot to say. Like, oh, okay, good luck. Well, go
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And so, touch bases with schools that, I was interested in coming out of high school. My best friend, Daniel, he was in Santa Cruz as well too. So it made a lot of sense for me. I was close enough to home. In San Francisco, where my parents can come see me play, and again, a spot wasn't guaranteed, but I knew going from the LMU situation to the Santa Cruz situation, I can really have impact. And at that point, it was just me wanting to play, and so to go to a place where I had an opportunity to earn a spot, and not only earn a spot but earn some playing time and play meaningful minutes for a team. That's what ended up leading me to Santa Cruz.
That's awesome. And what was your experience like there? Were you guys in the gym daily? Was it rigorous training? Was the academics difficult? Talk
Yeah.
about that, please.
So it was kind of a choose your own adventure. Santa Cruz is not necessarily a perennial basketball school, but my senior year we ended up having a very winning season, and it was kind of culture building, and that's what was so cool about it was a choose your own adventure, and we chose to build the culture. We chose to be brothers with one another. We all lived in the same house. GJ, we ended up hiring. He was working at a gym at that time, so he carved out like a 90-minute session we were having off-season training. It was the first time people really were hitting the weight room hard, the plyometrics hard, the endurance hard. So we all came into our senior year in the best shape that a lot of us have ever been in. And then when you go through the trenches with somebody like that, you see somebody fall over from exhaustion, and you're able to pick them back up on and off the court. And it was a great mix of academic, athletic, and then social. And to be able to, it's a pretty rare trait to be able to apply yourself evenly and feel engaged in all of those aspects of your life, because sometimes if you give too much in one, you'll be lacking in the other. and to be able to balance it all has been yeah, no, it's extremely rewarding. I look back on it as some of the fondest times in my life, just being able to spend some time with, loving the grind, right, having keys to the gym, going up there, enjoying everything that you're doing, from school to basketball, and everything in between.
Absolutely. Do you have a game you remember from the Santa Cruz days that just stood out to you where you thought to yourself, I'm pretty damn good?
uh there was, I mean, my senior year, we had a couple. We took, like, Davis was D1, and it was like early on in the season, and we were dogging them. Like, I think
Ooh,
we were dogging them, and we ended up losing because we were like, it was just, we just missed a bunch of free throws. It was such a D3 thing to do. Um,
yeah.
we ended up losing them that game. Their rival was Chapman, and I think, I mean, I didn't know much about the rivalry, but all of my seniors were telling me, like, they spent 4 years there and they never won a single game. So we ended up beating them when they came to our house, and like a lot of the guys that had played and graduated had came down to watch that game, and they were so proud of us because it was like a hump that they could never get over.
Yeah.
And then I think I had a couple, like, I think I had a 30 ball or a 28 ball, and that was just like, yeah, I do this. This is what I do. I've been doing this. I could have been doing this. So just be able to, like, have that, that's a lot of points to play in anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's a good feeling.
That's awesome. We should give a quick plug and a shout out to Daniel J, because you and him, in my opinion, are like the unofficial mayors of Santa Cruz. I went out a couple times to visit y'all, know everybody. The vibe in Santa Cruz is amazing. Somehow, in 18 years growing up in the Bay, I had never spent time there really and didn't know the environment. And I believe Daniel still has one, if not more, gyms down there and a
Yeah,
couple
he
of
still got
training
his gym down there.
routines. So big shout out Daniel J. And we will connect maybe his gym or his IG somewhere here in the episode link, because
Cool.
very, very motivational dude to follow and just a really positive person as well. So shout out.
Definitely the unofficial mayor there. I mean, I think if he ran for office, he could probably win. I think so. But yeah, he's doing great. He's got his gym, CrossFit West, that he's still plugging in. And yeah, another Lagarza guy, and he says, again, shout out Lagarza. He says, like, half of the things that I coach in my CrossFit gym and my strength training gym is things that I've learned from Lagarza.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, man, that's my brother. We spent Christmas together, so, and just to have like a motivational force outside of basketball, right? So you can have a friendship and a brotherhood, but at the same time, like, you respect him as a trainer, you respect him as a strength coach, and for him to be able to elevate us,
Mhm.
um, it's just an amazing experience.
100%. I feel like this is a perfect segue into the weight training and the weight room. And for several years of my 20s, you were by far the most fit person in my peer group and my friend group, hardest training, most dedicated in the weight room, really, really ridiculously cut. Maybe even more so than the average, what you need for like a basketball court, but just cut for life. And so I think I want to seek your expertise here. This is where you by far top me in terms of maybe how to get the most out of your body for those
Yeah.
kids that want to put on a little weight, for folks that are, feel stuck, stagnant in their training routines. Let's lean in here. And first, I guess I'll ask from the basketball perspective, are there workouts or muscle groups that you would highly encourage players to train and to work on if they want to be successful on the court?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was just a little dude. I was just a smaller dude growing up. My mom is tiny, my dad is slight. So I'm battling genetics, right? And so I was never the fastest, I was never the strongest, but it's something that, you can see tangible improvement. And that was probably where I saw, that's where the love came from, was, I could set a goal, and you can only accomplish it through sheer will and hard work. Um, and weightlifting and strength training is linear. It's linear, just like that. If you follow a program, if you do what you're supposed to do, and if you're eating right, then everything is not everything, but your goals can be obtainable. And so the big emphasis for that was just, being able to play against bigger, stronger, faster people. And then where are you getting the edge? And so for me, my edge was conditioning. I'm 5'10". I played it a buck 75. So but a buck 75 with like, I think I was around 8 or 9% body fat. So I was real lean, and I could just, it was not about how long I could run, but how quickly my second and third and my fourth win. I could just get an ultimate reset when someone was shooting free throws.
Yeah.
And so like
Just to give a quick too, like when I graduated high school, I was 6'5", a buck 75. And so 5'10", a buck 75. This boy was cut, y'all. Because I had you by 7 inches, and we were the same weight. Cut, but I mean, obviously, this is a little later. We're talking college numbers.
right.
Anyway, I just want to give perspective. Like 5'10", 175, pure muscle.
And it was a good playing weight for me. And when you talk about training, there's, you have to couple strength training with endurance training. And so what I've been really preaching is just putting in the weight on in your legs as much as possible without losing a step. And it's hard to do, like they call it like lean bulking, I guess would be the technical term. And it's not necessarily a classic a strength way to train, but to be able to, still run your time, still run your mile, but to be able to put the strength on, because it's mostly in your base and in your core. So I was able to like make a name especially in the prime, like as a defender. Like I was an undersized guard that was able to play good defense because I couldn't get knocked off my spot, and I was able to fight through screens. And those little things where size does matter, and you're able to combat it in different ways. And mine was physicality and endurance.
What exercises were you doing for, say, increased leg strength or improved vertical leap?
Yeah, so all of the classic muscle group strength stuff, like back squatting, front squatting. We got really into Olympic weightlifting, so cleaning and jerking, and it really trained the fast twitch muscle. So I was a 1 foot jumper at first, and then as you do things with a solid base of back squatting and front squatting, the power can be generated in greater force with 2 feet, which is what I found. And so to be able to couple those strength stuff, classic back squat, deadlift, strength stuff, and then to couple it with Tabata, box jumps, um, squatting, lunges, weighted walking lunges, jumping lunges, all the body weight stuff, to keep you light and to keep the fast twitch muscles firing.
Love that. Can I ask, just for the girls watching, at your biggest, what were you squatting? What were you clean and jerking? What weight?
I was snatching 110, so 242. And then clean and jerk, I got up to 140. 140 times 2.2, so 308. And then I was back squatting right around 175 times 2.2. So 175 kilos, and then 385 pounds was probably right around my max.
That's a real lifter for you all, because Olympic lifters lift in kilos, right? And study all their weights by kilos. So just understand how serious this man takes it. And, 11-year professional basketball career, I've never touched anywhere near that amount of weight. So very impressive, man.
And yeah, it just translates in different ways. As a pro athlete, you had to refine your skills in a gym, as opposed to me, where I could, get by with the skills that I had, but also be a physical presence as an undersized guard, combo 1-2 guard. But to be able to still have the dynamics of that, I attribute a lot to weightlifting and strength training.
And you've tried them all. You've tried Olympic lifting, you've done CrossFit, you've done things more similar to bodybuilding. What do you recommend to your young athletes? Or what do you recommend to, adults, grown folks trying to get themselves right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what stage and what phase of your life is. For me as a college athlete, I think like a strength training program that was focused around, increasing your squat, increasing your deadlift, and just overall general physical fitness is important. And then a lot of hit stuff, a lot of high intensity interval training, which is where the explosion comes from, which where the endurance comes from. And then, varying it up, being able to do both of those workouts in a day, and then still being able to have the legs to get in the gym and get shots up, to get in the gym and play defense. And it becomes like the totality of the work that you completed in the day. Right. And every day is not going to be different. Say you can hit boxing and it's going to train a different muscle group and a different strength area. But when it's all applied to, you can do all this in the summer, but when it's all applied to a single sport, you're able to excel in ways that someone with a limited, basketball only or strength training program only wouldn't be able to.
Mhm.
Did I, did,
After
did I answer that question?
you did, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. After college for you, after your playing days, and what was, I guess, around my third, fourth year as a professional, we started to spend a lot more time together, and we became a lot closer. And you essentially became probably my main off-season trainer on court, especially, but also a little bit off court. And so I'm curious from your point of view, because I have my point of view and I remember these late nights training and stuff like that. But I just want to ask what you remember from those days in the gym with me as a pro athlete,
Yeah.
on the court, weight room, late nights. Just talk about that time period in our lives. And I guess, what your approach was, how you were thinking of ways to push me, all of that stuff.
Super informative, absolutely. And the thing that you and I really connected on was just the love of the grind, and that's something that is not. I mean, as much as we say it, it's so understated because you have to love what you're doing, and you have to like you can grind for 45 minutes and get the most out of it, or you can just lock yourself in the gym for sometimes 3 hours with the music on full blast and just really find a rhythm and flow. And so for you, what I noticed was just the amount of the capacity of work that you were able to do, the amount, and also how singularly focused you were. Like today, I am working on this thing, and we would spend 90 straight minutes of working on 2 dribble pound pull-up drills, and then followed by spot up shooting or a little bit of conditioning. Just the plethora of things that we're able to do in a gym and never be bored, and to always game speed reps in the 90th minute of our workout. And that was something that you really emphasized was anytime that I am working out, I am going to be going game speed. And then everything becomes easier after that if you're working at a speed that I know I can excel at.
Yeah. I had met so many people where I think they would tell me the goal should be for the training to be harder than the games. And that just made so much sense to me, that if we go hard enough in the off season, in the summer, in our training, then a lot of this stuff would be second nature in a game. I won't have to think about it. And hopefully I'll be uber confident.
Yeah.
So, that was my side of it and my takeaway from it. And those nights I cherish, man. I really enjoyed those nights of just two people in the gym, music blasting. Sometimes I really reflect back on those with more, I guess, warmth and joy than the time we spent, I spent playing on some random gym in some random country.
It's true. It's true. It almost becomes therapeutic, right? Like you and I having that shared experience, makes us that much closer. But at the same time, those are some of the best conversations as men that we've ever had. Those are some of the best. That's how our friendship has been able to form through these, trials and tribulations. I've seen you at your exhaustion, and I've pushed you to a point where you needed to be. And then for me to see you go overseas and kill it, it's reinforcing to me like, okay, everything that we were doing in that gym was for a purpose, and we're not, neither of us are wasting our time. Our brotherhood is getting even greater, but at the same time, like athleticism, physicality, and spiritually, we're able to connect. I think is, a wonderful experience.
So true, 100%. And then let's talk about, where you're at now. Now you're a coach. It's come
Yeah.
full circle, right? you're coaching young men from San Francisco, pushing them to be the best they can do. And
Right.
from what Carl did to you, and now oddly enough, you're doing it with Carl. So
Yeah,
you want to talk about, I don't know, how much detail you're able to go on your own program or this and
of
that, but
course.
do you want to talk about coaching as it is right now and what your main goal is in working with your players?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm back at Lincoln. I have been for the last 3 years, 4 years, 4 years at Lincoln with Carl. And it's been, I see it as the same way that how I grew up in the gym of just, someone that has played at a high level and has taken a specific interest in me and has allowed me to be a better person. And you talk about the philosophy in terms of which we coach. We're not building players. We'd like to think of ourselves as building young men. And then whether it be the lessons on and off the court, to you can't teach somebody to love something, but you can teach them work ethic and what it takes to be successful. And so I was blessed to inherit, just boys that love to be in the gym. And just as a gym rat, as you and I both know, like that's where the best work has been able to go. Like I can't kick these kids out. Like this is all they want to be. They text me on weekends. They text me on holidays. Like, can we get in the gym? And it's awesome to see that being nurtured. And then, to have it move on to the next generation. And just to pay it forward. It's
Yeah.
all just it's rewarding in itself to see, and to have real conversations. Like you go harder at me like when we're playing ones than you are at this kid guarding you in high school. Like I know I'm better than this high school kid, like,
Right.
and to have like that's a switch for them. It's like, he's right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go kill this dude.
Yeah.
um and it's been really, really, yeah, no, I mean, as rewarding as it is for them in terms of like the knowledge that I've been able to kick, it's just rewarding for me, to be in that gym with them and see the growth and keeps me young.
It's amazing to me how much of success in the game of basketball and the game of life is mental. And as a young kid, I feel like I was, or not a young kid, but as I entered my pro career, I feel like I had to outwork every single second of the day and just grind nonstop and do 200x from everybody to be successful and be good. And then I took that approach that I was putting into all this effort physically, and I did that mentally as well. And I started, to speak to myself in my mind about being more talented. I started to be more appreciative of a life outside of the US and playing in some third world countries
Yeah.
and some of the extremes that I had to experience in order to continue to play the game. And then I had to, I became a little bit more positive in the reinforcement I was saying mentally, and really attributing and paying attention to the thoughts that I was allowing to creep into my head when we had a big Euro Cup game or I was going against a former NBA legend or a EuroLeague
Right.
superstar and say, I'm just as good. I deserve to be here. I deserve to
Mm-hmm.
dominate. And almost, I really do feel in hindsight, I'm glad I had the work ethic on court I had and that we put those hours in. But I think the mental approach and the paying attention to my mental health as an athlete maybe did more for me than anything else that I had done in terms of having a really successful career.
That's a
So
great point.
that's just something that popped into my head, kind of hearing us go back through this journey was like,
Mm-hmm.
man, it's two-part, right? Like mentally, if I tell myself I deserve to dominate this dude, I deserve to. I put in so much work this summer. Or, everybody on my team went home immediately after practice. I stayed for an hour and shot. I deserve to take and make this big shot, right? It's
Right.
a lot of that was just mental, right? So I don't know. I felt like I should share that because I think we all talk about the Kobe mentality and the work ethic side of the Kobe
Mm-hmm.
mentality, but obviously in there is mental, right? Like the frame of mind to say, I don't care what strong rookies coming in the league. I don't care if I'm on a team with Shaq Diesel and he's the biggest and most forceful, strong presence in the NBA. I'm
Right.
Kobe. And that's that. It's just
Right.
whether you hate it or love it, it's an impressive thing to have and a big skill for a professional basketball player.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then for kids that want to play at Lincoln, they want
Mm-hmm.
to have a high school basketball career, they want to make your team. Any advice as to what they should be working on or what they should be prepared to endure?
Um, I mean, we harp on fundamentals, as as it's easy to look awesome on a mixtape, right? Anybody could put together a mixtape of 6 minutes of footage and hit a crazy layup, and shoot fadeaway threes and look at the bench. Anybody could do that, but it comes with knowing your fundamentals. Like I think the game has evolved so much. Like these kids that I at Lincoln, the Aquino brothers, when I first started to work out with them, I think they were more skilled, like pure skill. I could do a cone drill, the handle, the layup package. They were more skilled as freshmen and sophomores in high school than I was as a graduating senior in college. Like I just think that they've been in a gym their entire lives, and have hit their. We've talked about this before, but have hit their 9,000th hour in a gym when I was in sophomore in college and they are sophomores in high school. Just like the capacity that they've put in up to this point, um, is amazing. But at the same time, like I could still knock down a one dribble pull up jumper at a higher clip than they do,
Mhm.
because of that's something that's a fundamental. And as much as you can do X, Y, and Z, can't you? Let's go back to A, B, and C, and let's focus on these things. And so that's probably, I mean, lefty, easy to say. Like having a left hand is having like opens up an entire side of the floor that maybe 90% of your peer group doesn't have.
Right.
And
Awesome.
then physicality comes with it, and yeah, I would just say really focusing on the fundamentals, and then coachability, being able to listen. Not no one's trying to check you, but this is purely for your improvement, and to be open-hearted and open-minded, and to approach each day trying to get better, wanting to get better, and applying that every day. I think is probably the biggest things that stick out.
I love that. And then I love too hearing your full circle story, because as a kid who was not academics first oriented, let's say, you're now in a master's program. You want
Right.
to touch on that a little bit, and I'm
Yeah,
just curious,
absolutely.
your plans for the future.
I didn't want to steal your shine, but you were talking about like mental preparation, and how far like taking into consideration your mental health, as a pro athlete. And I think too often that gets overlooked. We can focus on skill drill and ball work and just fitness and uh, in general, but to ignore the mental side of the game would be a disservice to yourself and a disservice to the sport. So yeah, I'm working with Holy Name University, finishing up my master's in a CMPC, which is a certified mental performance consultant, with an emphasis on sports psychology. And so to be able to lock in and find these flow states that we talk about, when things kind of slow down, you're able to take in more information than you're able to process, and to be able to reach peak performance over and over again, and controlling the things that you can control. So that's what I'm working on now. And I just finished my first semester. It's actually been really informative to be able to snap back and get into a much more structured lane, and to look at, um, what is the word I'm looking for? To look at real data and see how we can improve these things that will touch on obviously improvement of physical strength and skill, but at the same time, overall mental health and physical health for the individual.
I think that's amazing. I'm super excited to see what you do with that information, that skill set, on top of all the experience and knowledge that you already have, and how you use that to help better so many young players. I think you're going to do tremendous things around this game, help a lot of people. You've obviously helped me a ton in my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And, for this audience, as we continue to grow and do more shows, we promise you that, as Sam develops that side and kind of curates that skill set, that will lean on him and
Absolutely.
feel as much from what he's learning to help you all throughout your careers, both early and later, as much.
Absolutely.
And I'm really excited about that, man. Proud of you.
Appreciate
So,
you.
before we get into our overtime, man, let's get into a couple of things, just random questions I'm super curious about.
Yeah.
What artists are you banging out on the headphones before a big game?
I always Wayne. Oh,
Mhm.
mixtape Wheezy got me through everything. Um, and it's we talk about like peak performance, but there's still like that. You hear the lighter flick, and like
Yeah.
something is inside.
That's push you back to
Something inside
17.
me like just wakes me up. Like something inside me just wakes me up. Like, oh, so I have to go to. Oh, no, it's cool, it's cool. So it just being like almost like a Pavlov trigger, right? Because pretty much every time I was in the weight room, it was Wheezy or Jay, and so it's just yeah. I grew up on you know all of
Mixtape,
that.
man. I love it.
Yeah.
Favorite hoop shoe? All time.
I played in high school and in college in the pro models.
Whoa,
Yeah,
Three Stripe Life. Shout
yeah.
out. Okay.
I think both of them were team shoes, and
Yeah.
so you don't really have much of a choice when it gets to that.
Okay.
Um, I was the when I left college, I just had all these shoes just because I've been a hooper, and so I got a closet full of shoes. So I started playing in 11s, um, just because I had pairs that were just sitting around. And I needed to do something with them.
Yep.
So I really like those. They were less bulky than I expected them to be. And then recently I just bought a pair of Kyrie's, and I've heard nothing but good things. But I did rupture my Achilles in them, so um, it's not the shoe. It wasn't the shoe. It wasn't the shoe.
Yeah,
But they
it's
were
all
super
good.
comfy.
Nike, it's all
Yeah.
good. So,
Yeah.
and how are you, man? You're healing up? Messed up the Achilles, one of the most difficult injuries to
Yeah.
heal from.
Um,
I think.
I haven't hit a wall yet. And I feel like I'm past the point where I could have been like out of it.
How many months ago was the injury, and then
6 now.
okay. And where are you at
six
right
months
now? Are
ago.
you walking? You're putting weight on?
Yeah, no, I pretty much can do everything except for like sprint.
Yeah.
I can't like cut hard. And I'm not back squat. I don't have any like weight on there, but I'm walking a bunch. And at this point, it's just strengthening everything else around it. It's grafted itself. It's fully reconnected, but it was just in atrophy for 6 months not being used. I think the first 3 months I was just fully casted, so just not being used. And I strengthened the calf. I'm working with a sports physical therapist over at UCSF Mission Bay, which has been great at Kaiser. And so I'm looking forward to it's part of like the mental journey too, looking forward to getting back to a place where I'm able to and every day is better, and to improve on that. It's a
I
it's a
wish
test.
I wish injury upon no human being,
No.
but especially for an athlete who is for the majority of their life used to their body performing at a heightened state and being able to do more athletically than the average person. An injury can really take a toll on you mentally. So just know that over a long career, we all get injured. It's going to be something you have to battle, and that time period while rehabilitating the body, concentrate and don't forget about your mental health as well, because they are so heavily linked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thanks for touching on that.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite player to watch and basketball player to watch?
uh, Ever or right now?
Both, either.
Ooh, I think Iverson was probably, just we spoke about him earlier.
How about now?
Iverson, just because of like the sheer will that he imposed as like a little dude,
Yeah.
as a regular sized human being,
Yeah.
and for him to just to see his on top of like the culture that he brought to the game.
You love to see those cornrows getting twisted on the bench.
You know,
How about
shout out
current
Mama.
players? Who do you like to watch currently?
I'm in San Francisco. How can you not love Steph? How can you not love Steph? Um, the young boys, basketball has got so much talent right now.
Yeah.
Um, I like I like SGA a lot. I think he's just real
Oh yeah.
smooth,
I haven't
shy.
seen a lot of their games, man.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
like. No one really watches a lot of the games,
Yeah.
but
They don't get a lot of airtime too. I'm
yeah.
Seattle right now. I was like,
I just think he's super smooth, like never forcing anything, never rushing anything. Um, yeah, I always gravitate towards guards. And Kevin, like I think watching Kevin Durant play basketball is, I don't think there's been a more skilled offensive player ever. And how effortless he makes things is ridiculous. And um, he's high on the pantheon. And every time he plays, every time him, Steph, or Bron play, I just feel like, the old witnessing perfect basketball
Yeah.
in whatever capacity you can find it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then let's close it out. Overtime, almost everybody I know in and around the game of basketball has at least one crazy basketball related story. As much as you're able, would you be willing to share with us just one crazy basketball story from your entire career as coach, trainer, player that you remember?
Yeah. I think a lot of I think it can draw back to like where my motivation comes from. And so I think we've talked about this before, but I lost the city championship to my brother as a sophomore.
Wow.
And so we were at different high schools. He was a senior, I was a sophomore. We had played earlier in the year, and my team was just better. And he didn't have a really good start to the season, but he finished the season really strong. And he was the underdog, and I think we were the highest seed going into it, or at least the second highest seed. And they ended up, the second highest seed, and they ended up upsetting the number one team in the league to go into the championship. And we handled our business. We actually played against Ivan Elliott.
Wow.
So my team beat Ivan's team to go to the city championship.
Shout out Ivan, my teammate at UCSB and
future guest.
Yeah, future guest. Played against him overseas for many, many times. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we beat Ivan, and then my brother's team beat, and so we met up in the championship. And I was young. I was a sophomore. He was a senior, and he ended up hitting the like an and one to go up one to win the game with 6 seconds left. And I don't think I've played a worse game in my life. I think I was like 0 for 7, 6 turnovers, and I had a really good sophomore year, and I don't think I've ever played worse than that. And so when I look back in terms of motivation, it was like that feeling has like resonated through 33 years of my 18 years of my life, to vow to myself that I'll never feel like this again. Just because I didn't, it was the first time I was on a big stage, and I just didn't take the moment very seriously. And I was able to, like, anytime I was feeling exhausted or feeling tired or I was able to draw back to that moment. So he's got that one on me.
What was dinner like in the Allen household that night? Is Matt a sore winner? I think
he was gracious. He was gracious.
Okay, he was cool about it.
Yeah, he was gracious.
And then how did your folks handle wanting to celebrate a son winning a city championship and then a son losing a city?
They sat on opposite sides, so they were
one parent per kid for this game.
Yeah, they were split. It was actually, I remember too, it was like my birthday's March 4th. The playoffs, the semifinal was the 3rd, and then the championship was the 5th. So like my birthday dinner, we didn't say shit. No words were said. No words were spoken. But he was gracious. I was devastated. He was gracious. And
I also can't imagine what bigger motivation do you need as a senior in high school to not lose a championship game than my little brother's gonna let me hear about it for the rest of my life as well.
Facts.
That's what everyone.
That's facts.
Oh yeah.
It was it was at Kezar, so it was packed out. And I remember specifically, and I think it still kind of messes with me to this day. But the crowd was like chanting, "Sam is better," and but the other crowd was chanting, "Matt is smarter," and it like,
oh god,
it was on my line.
Oh my gosh, bro! Yeah. I would give it. Do you have the footage of that game?
I'm sure.
Or did you burn it? You burned it.
I'm sure we could dig it up.
And I would give anything now, knowing you all in retrospect to have been a fan of that game, man.
Yeah. That was low-key bullying, though. They're like telling me I'm not smart. Like,
nowadays you'll get canceled for that. That whole
I got 1,000 people bullying me as I'm a 14-year-old boy. Like, let me live.
Just got to high school. Why y'all?
Yeah, come on, man. This is bullying. But yeah, man. I know, like, every time we talk about a story, like, and I think, like, it is a fork in the road, and it set me on an awesome trajectory to love the game of basketball, to be able to like put myself in positions to feel that way and to not feel that way. But the fact that you felt something means it means that much to you.
I can't think of any better way to end it than that, man.
Yeah.
Well said. And also, I want to give a quick shout out to your folks, your mom and dad, who have always, since the first time I ever walked into your house in the Ave, Sunset, San Francisco, yay! Literally treated me like a son. I mean, truly treated me like a son. A lot of people say that, or a lot of parents, pretend they act that way. I contemplated changing my last name to Allen several times, and I probably still.
Always welcome.
I
Always
can't
welcome.
imagine the tab I've run up in your kitchen and
Yeah.
how much I owe my Dukes for groceries.
Not
But
at all.
they have done a phenomenal job parenting and raising your brother and you, and they need to write a book. And as a father now, I'm going to be reaching out to them heavily and consulting them on that. And if they look at this, or if you speak to them soon, just tell them the impact they've had on my life. It's absurd, and I'm so grateful. What wonderful human beings.
I'll absolutely pass the message.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
blessings. As always, we ran long. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you
My
even more
brother.
for being my co-host. Thank you even more for being my brother, man. I love you.
Of
Thank
course.
you for doing this.
Love you
And
too, man.
let's touch as many folks with this as we can.
Can't
That's
wait.
Sam Allen. My name is Al Harris, and this is Talking Swish. Peace.